New from K-Tel Records, 22 explosive hits.
Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. You know, on CD Junkie, there were quite a few things that I do not talk about. One of them is politics. One of them is sports. One of them is jazz music. And one of them is religion. But when it comes to religion, that doesn't mean that I can't talk about the music itself. Now, I've got thousands of CDs, and maybe my Christian music CD collection is probably 100 titles, if even that. But this is stuff that I really love. I listen to a lot of music, and I'm drawn to the melodies, the sound of the music, and you know, the lyrics and everything else. And so I have gravitated towards some of the music that is commonly referred to as Jesus music in the 70s and contemporary Christian music, or CCM, in the 80s. And that's basically where my music lies. I didn't listen to anything beyond the 80s. For those of you scared of religion, I'm not going to talk about religion. I said I do not discuss it. I will just discuss the bands and the music. But I won't be touching on all the stuff that I have because there are bands like The Call, Tony O'Kay, and artists like that were releasing music in the secular market and also the Christian market. And those are artists that I probably will focus on in another episode somewhere down the line. I'm a big fan of The Call. And another band that I will not be talking about in this episode is a band called Daniel Amos. They have a whole box to themselves, Daniel Amos and the solo material from Terry Scott Taylor. I will do a video devoted to them once I actually own the brand new CD by Terry Scott Taylor, which I've heard, which is stunning. If you're into power pop, new wave, country rock, just every bit of melodic music you can think of, Daniel Amos has recorded it. I have a lot here, so I'm going to go through as quick as possible. There will not be a medley. At the end, I'm just going to talk about the music real fast. Now, the whole Jesus music movement really started in the late 60s, early 70s, and this was one of the albums that really set it off. This is the first Maranatha music compilation, and if you like country rock and sort of breezy folk rock, this is an album to get. This is an album that inspired a lot of the bands in the Jesus music scene. And this actual CD can be found in a 7 CD box set featuring the Maranatha series. Definitely worth your while to check it out if you enjoy that. Sort of in the same line as that sort of folky, breezy, harmony-laden music, Children of the Day, and those are CD reissues of 4 of their albums. There was a really popular band in the early 70s called Love Song. I don't own anything by them, but I do have this 2 CD set featuring the first 4 solo albums by band member Chuck Girard. One of the most controversial and popular artists from the Jesus music movement was Larry Norman, and I have a stack of CD reissues of his as well. Very unique. Nothing like you've heard in pop or in quote-unquote religious music. Really a unique talent. Strange that he would be involved in religious music because of the fact that he's so odd, and I think that's what made him controversial. So now that's it really with my 70s. We're going to head into the 80s, and I'm going to be doing this hopefully alphabetically. Hopefully I filed them together in the correct order. A great 80s guitar trio called Common Bond. And this was actually their second album. The first album never came out on CD, but it's got a lot of really good songs. In fact, there's a cover version of a Daniel Amos song on here. And, you know, they sound sort of influenced by whatever was going on in the sort of mid to late 80s. More maybe U2 with a little bit more edge, but they don't sound anything like U2, but, you know, you can hear it sort of in echo in the guitar and stuff like that. But really good band. Another great band from the era is a band called The Choir, not the band related to, you know, the Raspberries and stuff from the 70s. This was an 80s band called The Choir, and I have a box set, I believe it's like 8 CDs featuring like their first, I don't know, 7 or 9 albums and rarities and all that kind of stuff. A really nice package that gathers together some really rare material. If you love alternative, sometimes it has sort of a darker hue to it, very moody, not goth. And, you know, they started out sort of more poppy, but then they sort of became their own thing. Very atmospheric and really wonderful. So definitely check out The Choir. One of my absolute favorite bands from the period was a band called Chromebacker, and they're more of a synth pop band. but it was very unique because their backing vocals weren't like, you know, harmony like Beach Boys and stuff. The backing vocals were more like choir vocals, and, you know, only 3 or 4 people, but they were layered differently than most pop music, and the songs were great. This top CD features their first 2 albums and then their 3rd and 4th album below that. Then there's an album by Chromebacker Duke there, and then finally a solo album from Stephen Chromebacker. But I would definitely recommend the first 4 Chromebacker albums out of that set. Absolutely wonderful pop music, keyboard new wavy, really, really cool. If you love AOR, Heartland rock, you're probably going to dig digarmo and Key. They were actually, I think, the first Christian band that ever had a video on MTV, and it was called 666. These are not in any order. I believe all of these are recent remasters from Girder Music. The only thing I am missing, I think, from those remasters is the live album, but I don't care about live albums too much. Rob Frazier is more AOR rock. Those are recent reissues on Girder Music. Now, like I said, all the stuff I'm showing you now is from the 80s, but I couldn't pinpoint a year because I forgot to write it down. Now, this one's interesting. Jimmy Hott's Beyond the Crystal Sea. This is actually a prog album, sort of a hard rock prog album, or a prog album with a little bit of an edge. This came out in 1980, and it's got some really, really cool songs on it. The Imperials have been around for years. These are the only 2 albums I own. These are typical sort of late 80s production, but great songs, great vocals, and that's really what it's all about. One of the most iconic Christian artists is Phil Keaggy, and he's been around for, in the business for 50 years or so. When he actually does vocal albums, they're very, very McCartney-esque in terms of his voice. He's got that sweet McCartney voice, which he really used to full effect on the album Phil Keaggy and Sunday's Child. If you are a power pop fan and you love the bands that sort of remind you of, like, let's say the Ruddles and that Utopia to Face the Music, things like that, this is very Beatlesque and very much worth checking out. Phil Keaggy and Sunday's Child. This is Time, which is the best of. And like I said, it's got a lot of really nice McCartney-esque vocal songs, but he's best known as a guitar player, and he's an incredible one at that. This is a reissue of the 1984 album by Dan Peek, formerly of America, who has sadly passed away. Now, here's a few releases by Lesley Phillips. This is The Turning, and this is a compilation. Lesley Phillips is now known as Sam Phillips. She married T-Bone Burnett and changed her name and started recording for the secular market under Sam Phillips. The Turning is a critically successful album. If you're into Sam Phillips solo stuff, The Turning is probably the closest thing that you're going to find from her solo catalog, but a great vocalist, great songwriter, and like I said, this is sort of a compilation after she released The Turning, and sort of wraps up her career and includes new versions of a couple of the old songs as well. Here's some releases by sort of the hard rock, melodic hard rock, or AOR band called the Res Band or Resurrection Band or Res, depending on which album you own, but lots of great material there. They do have a lot more available, but that's all I have. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of new wave power pop, so of course the 77s fit along there, and here's her 3 albums. These are expanded reissues, and filled with great songs. Each album is different because they were sort of progressing along with what the music scene was like. Like this one here has some great synthy pop songs, whereas this one here has more bombastic, I don't want to say Springsteen or Bryan Adams, but really commercial rock. In fact, this album was released on Island Records. I think it was their first secular release, but all 3 of these are available, as well as a lot more. Unfortunately, this is all I own by the 77s. Now, I have to admit right now that I'm skipping a lot of the stuff that I originally was going to present because I knew that this video was just going to be way too long. So I'm just showing you the more alternative or the new wavy type things. But I will make an exception for this Michael W. Smith album called The Big Picture. This is more of almost a new wavy thing. I mean, it doesn't veer too far away from his other stuff, but it's a really, a lot of really cool songs on it. Very keyboard oriented, very late 80s, but a lot of really good songs. And like I said, that's what's important. Remember just a few years back when that viral video came out, Jesus is a Friend of Mine by Sunseed? Well, I have a CD featuring that song and a few more. It's actually a CD EP, and boy, do I love that song. It's upbeat, catchy ska, and once you hear it, you can't get it out of your head for days. Now, here's another band that are sort of legendary in the CCM world, and that is Sweet Comfort Band. It's interesting because when I go back and listen to Sweet Comfort Band now, I hear a lot of yacht rock. It's sophisticated jazz rhythms or chord changes mixed with pop and rock, and of course, a lot of great tunes spread out over these albums. And here are the first 4 solo albums from Sweet Comfort vocalist Brian Duncan, and 2 albums by the Allies, which features Sweet Comfort guitarist Randy Thomas. One of the greatest vocalists of that whole CCM period in the mid to late 80s was Russ Taff. And there's 2 albums by Russ Taff there. And both of these, they have great songs. Remember I mentioned The Call a long time ago? Well, he does a version of I Still Believe on this album. And lots of great stuff. His voice is really magnificent. One of the most legendary of all the CCM artists from the 80s was Steve Taylor, who really took chances musically. He was all over the map. This is a 2 CD compilation here, and it includes solo material and also stuff from, I believe it has something from Chagall Guevara, which is a band that he formed, which was advertised and sold to the secular market. But a really creative guy, lots of great tunes and melodies. Not to be confused with the power pop band, here is 2020, but it's spelled out. So they are not 2020 the Power Pop Band. They're more of an AOR melodic rock band. Really good songs on the albums. Again, this is all stuff that really never made it into the secular market. You can only find it at the Christian bookstores, but you can also find them now online. Here's 2 albums on 1 disc by the Christian punk band Undercover. This has a great version of Holy, 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 which I've put on punk compilations before, and really confused my friends with that one. Here's another great, synth pop AOR band called Vector. And this has their first 2 albums on it. And the first album featured Charlie Peacock, who eventually did some critically successful albums and became a very popular producer. And I think he's still producing in Nashville right now. But Vector was sort of a new wave band. Their song Surrender is fantastic. And finally, more AOR melodic rock from Whiteheart. They have more albums than this. Again, this is all I have. I know that some people are going to say, oh, Schnee, you don't have this or you don't have that. I know, but, we all have limited funds, so we buy what we can buy. And then somewhere along the line, I'll be adding more to this collection. But there's all this other stuff that I have to add to as well. So I don't know if I'll ever get around to having complete collections by all of these bands, apart from maybe Daniel Amos. But that doesn't mean that I won't try. But anyway, that is it. Do you collect any Jesus music or contemporary Christian music? I know it's not really a popular genre here on YouTube, but I'm not afraid to show anything. I listen to a lot of stuff. I will gladly listen to Sweet Comfort Band and then follow that up with Buzzcocks and then Tom Jones. Doesn't matter to me. If it moves me, it moves me. Anyway, that's it. I appreciate you sitting through this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.